Welcome to the Nehemiah Business Lifecycle podcast. I'm here with my good friend, a longtime member of our community, a champion in the financial service industry, David Witter. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. This is big time here. I love your setup and just super excited to be with you today and just share a few words of hopefully God's wisdom out there if we can find any with the kind of the chaos that's going on right now.
I know you are the right man for the moment, man. Every time I have had the privilege of coaching David for about over 10 years now. And every time we have a session, I like, David, I gotta get you to talk to our members. I gotta, both in terms of how he runs his business, but also in terms of his insights on the economy. So then we're gonna try to do two things. David will be speaking for us coming up at the Nehemiah Business Best Practice Conference in Orlando. That will be in May. He's also emceeing with his wife our brunch, and so we want to kind of get into that. But I also want to just pick David's brains around the U.S. economy and the dynamics happening with the new administration and how you should be looking at it if you've invested in the market or as a small business. And the plus and minuses, how you should be thinking through it. I thought he was the right guy to kind of address it. Before we get into it, though, let me just kind of do a kind of a formal introduction of David so you can kind of understand who is right before us, so you understand why I wanted him to be the one to do this. So he's a founder and CEO of Christian Financial Harvest Wealth Advisor. They're based out of Winter Park, Florida. David and his wife, Kathy, have both wealth strategists and did I say Kathy again? Katie.
It's Katie. That's all right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Katie. They're both wealth strategists and they co-own the firm, serving clients as advisory team. He's a certified financial planner and a certified succession planner. We're going to have him talk about the difference in a minute. He holds a FINRA Investment Advisor Representative License Series 66, enabling to serve clients in a fiduciary capacity and Florida Life Health, Variable Life, and Annuity State Insurance licenses. The key thing I want you to know about David is this. His firm are right at the doorstep of having $500 million under management, right? Right at the doorstep of it. It will be this year or next year, but I'm believing God for this year. He operates his firm. He serves clients throughout the nation. So I'm sure he's licensed throughout the nation. Where he's not, I'm sure he can get it done quickly. David also is very active in his local church. He's co-leads a marriage small group, and his wife is on the board of trustees, and they both go to First Presbyterian Church of Orlando, church that we love. It's like one of my churches where I go to when I'm in Orlando, Florida. David, welcome to the podcast again.
Yeah, no, great introduction and thank you.
You're welcome. David, let's start with the economy because I really, so obviously we have a new administration. And let's first start with, I often ask you the question, I think we've had, 2 to 3 different presidents since you and I have worked together. Maybe 3 to 4, probably for sure 3, because one was 2 terms, and now we have another one that's 2 terms. So, and every time I ask you as you prepare for elections, I always ask you how the elections will impact the market, and your response is always the same. Let's start there. We have a new administration. He's 3 months in. So let's take us back to Q4. A new president's elected. So how would you respond to your clients if they ask you the question, how will the elections impact the market? Let's start there first. The U.S. elections.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the way to say it is if you let your politics drive your investment strategy, you're going to be sorely disappointed. When you look at the data, it really doesn't matter who's in the White House. Now, I know there's some of your listeners right now that are throwing rotten tomatoes at the camera right now. That's great. And look, I have strong conservative values and opinions, and I vote. But Katie and I, when we invest, our investment strategy, we have been like when Trump was in, when Biden was in, and when Trump's in again, our strategy hasn't changed. We continue to add to the portfolio and continue to invest. And so then you might say, well, why? Like, why wouldn't presidential elections and who's in power have more effect on the stock market returns? And where I go with that is, it is one person, like one role, right? And it has a lot of power politically across the globe. But when you invest in stocks, you're not investing in some mystical thing out there. You're investing in people just like you, me, and our listeners. You're investing in people that go to work, they come up with new products, new services, new innovations, new ways to cope with new situations. It's this constant innovation. And it goes right back to Genesis 1. So when God created us as human beings, the way we're uniquely different than every other creature that he created is that we can language. And how did God bring all this into existence? He spoke it into existence. And so when you are investing in stocks, you're investing in harnessing the power, the ingenuity, you're really a co-creator with God. And so the overall collective force, innovation, productivity of billions of people across the planet, in the long run, is going to overwhelm whatever happens politically with one country, including the United States. So that's what I would remind our viewers is absolutely you should vote. You should vote your values, but don't let it impact your investment strategy, because the data shows whether it's a Republican or Democrat, it's almost identical, the rate of return when there's a Democrat and a Republican in the White House.
Right now, I can see conservatives says blasphemy. I can see that. I can also see liberals, or Democrats kind of saying, what about what's going on right now with the market, right? But we'll get to that. But let's go back one a little bit. I love the way you put it, David, because at least
Hey, can I share a slide?
Yes,
can I share a slide real quick? So
yes.
let me see how I do this. Present. All right, let me give this slides. And oh, it's not in the format. Oh, your computer. Let's try that. I guess I have to upload it. So I'll get it to you as a follow up. But it's a grid just showing you red and blue who is in the office and the Everett onward march up of stocks.
Yeah.
And,
well, you can show your screen if you want.
That's what I was trying to do.
On your screen. Yeah. If it's on your screen, so you can go to present.
Share screen.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
All right. And then tab.
Yeah. Because I do want them to kind of see that visual.
Share. Is it working?
Well, keep going. Let's see. Did you click the screen and click share? There it is. It's coming up.
Stream this to your audience.
Yeah.
Oh, you see now? Okay.
Yeah, we need to see specific. Show us. You're seeing a whole lot of stuff. Yep, there it is. All right. Now it's good.
All right. Now you see the chart?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is going back to, believe it or not, 1926. And the blue is obviously when there's a Democrat in the White House, and the red is when there's a Republican in the White House. And you can see this is $1. So you invested $1 in 1926. It grew to somewhere around $12,000 this is at the end of 2023. And you can see that there's really no rhyme or reason. If you start to look at individual presidencies, one of the best performing ones was actually Gerald Ford. Who knows why? One of the worst ones was Bush W. And you could say it had and 9/11 happened when he was the stock market performance, and you just can't let the politics get in the way.
Oh wow, that is incredible. Such an interesting and real insight. So David, is part of this, Natasha, thanks for watching. Is part of this issue, is part of this because of the way that the US economy and government is structured in terms of the pillars of our government and economy, It's not driven by one single pillar, but it's multifaceted. And and stock market actually goes down to the individual businesses.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. An example of that would be this summer. So I'll remind our viewers, if you remember, there was an assassination attempt on a major presidential candidate at that point in time, which was Donald Trump. And right after that, or right before that, Biden withdrew from the race. And then it wasn't 100% sure who was going to step in to represent the Democrats. And those two major events happened within the course of about 3 weeks. The stock market during that time didn't even waver. Now, that blew my mind. I think about just about any other country, if you saw two major events like that, an assassination attempt and also one of the major, like the incumbent withdrawing from the race, I think it would really shake the confidence in that country. I think the investors in that country, and the US stock market didn't even move. And I think that just goes back to the founding fathers, the way they set up the three branches of government. It's a democratic republic. There's certain safeguards in there. It is not perfect, right? We're in a sinful fallen world, but it is a good structure. The other thing that really I think gives the US a little bit of an upper hand is that we're very strong on protecting property rights. And you might say, well, yeah, everybody is. Not necessarily. I mean, that's one of the reasons why in our portfolios, we don't invest in Chinese stocks directly. We go through the Hong Kong exchange, because in China, they're not very good at recognizing property rights. They allow people to steal intellectual property. So it really comes down to that Judeo-Christian values. It was the underpinnings of our legal system. And in the United States, it makes it a great place to do business.
Oh, I love it. I'm talking with David Witter, him and his wife, Katie Witter. They both founded an amazing company called Financial Harvest Wealth Management, based out of Winter Park in Orlando, Florida.
Mhm.
And they are close to hitting the $500 million mark of assets under management. And if they hit it this year, when they hit it, we'll have David come back and talk about the
Celebration.
how to celebrate exactly. And so David will be our speaker this year at the Best Practice Conference. He'll be speaking on business succession. His business is right at profitability sustainability. He's got probably 10 plus years left in his journey towards exit. But we thought it would be a good idea to hear from somebody who's still 10 years out, at least minimum, right, for succession and exit, to kind of hear how he's thinking about it and what process he's putting in place as he thinks about eventual business succession and exit. Sometimes you usually hear from people who already exited or who are exiting. But the question often becomes, well, I'm 10 years away, I'm 15 years away, right? What are things I should be doing to prepare for that ultimate moment? And so they will talk about that. I've also asked him, as a financial advisor, when we think about succession, business succession, usually there are three people around the table, sometimes four. You have the business coach, at least when Nehemiah does it. You have the financial advisor. You have the lawyer. Use them last because lawyers have a tendency to mess up deals. So, and it never fails, David. When I bring the lawyer in, I always one of my clients said, look, just so you know, lawyers mess deals up. And literally 100% of the time, they will say, Patrice, you warned me. Right. So, but you do need the lawyer, because we're not lawyers and we don't play one on television. So we want to make sure the lawyers are in the room to solidify the deal and protect everybody's interests. But so you have the financial advisors to make sure that you're addressing the tax issue, to also make sure you're addressing fiscal issues in terms of estate issues, in terms of making sure that however you do, you maximize you minimize your tax burden while maximizing how much cash you can pull out, and also thinking long term about your personal estate, right? Yeah. And how it down to the business. So he's going to kind of
it even affects your charitable giving.
Exactly, charitable, 100%.
Yeah.
So Dave's going to kind of help us from that vantage point. And him and his wife both are also co-emceeing our Impact Brunch. So that's May 6th through 9th And so that's the event. If you've not yet registered, we invite you to go to the website at nehemiaheq.com/best practice conference and register and join us there. David, let's kind of talk about right now. So President Trump has been in power for 3 months now. And the market has had an interesting reaction to both his tax policies and who knows, even possibly to some of his other policies. So first, are you concerned? If so, why? If not, why not? And why should the average business person either not be concerned?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. One was you started the whole talk about recessions or economics and why do we even concern ourselves with it? So fundamentally, recessions and expansions, think of that as either opening spaces of possibility to transact in the marketplace, or are the possibilities closing? The good news is predominantly the global economy is usually in expansion. So there's more and more space for us to transact, give offers of great help to our customers and our clients and make money. In recessions, it closes for a period of time, meaning it gets a little bit smaller. And it's harder sometimes to get new deals, get new business, and get the revenue. So that's where you always start. That's what recessions and expansions are. The second thing I'd say is in the United States, they define a recession as 2 quarters of negative GDP. So if the first quarter has negative GDP and the second quarter has negative GDP, they would call that a recession in the United States. The first quarter will definitely be negative GDP. And the reason is imports, when they bring goods and services in, that counts negatively towards GDP. And if you're a business owner, you may have done this yourself. When Trump got elected and he says, hey, I'm going to put these new tariffs in place, everybody started bringing in external goods as quick as they could to get ahead of the tariffs. So that's just kind of a given. We're going to have negative GDP in Q1. So then the question becomes does the economy stumble and have also negative GDP in Q2? And we'll see. And that brings me to my second point, which is no one knows. So if someone,
why are you here, David? I'm just
so it's like people are like, oh, I think this is going to happen, or what about this, or what about that? It's like, well, no one knows exactly how it's going to turn out. And that's one of the reasons why the stock market is volatile right now, is because there is this uncertainty. But I do want to give you a sense of comfort. And that is, let's say, Patrice, you came to me today as a client and you said, David, I just read this article that Trump's going to put a 25% tariff tomorrow on Mexico. I think the stock market's going to crash. Well, if you know that piece of information, you're not the only one that knows that information. It's already public knowledge. And if you're worried about it, everybody else is worried about it too. And it's already priced into the market. Only unknowable future information moves the market up or down. So usually it doesn't matter what the crisis is or the worry or the fear or concern is. When somebody has it, I'm like, if you have it, do you think you're the only one? They're like, no, I read about it, or I heard it from my neighbor, or I talked to my brother or sister. So it's already priced into the market. Another way of saying that is, let's say that Trump wasn't talking about tariffs at all right now. The market might actually be 10% higher than it is right now, because that uncertainty or fear isn't present. So whatever is knowable, it's already priced in, meaning you can't predict this in advance. So then we say, well, would I buy equities today knowing that in the long run, I get an 8% compounded return? And honestly, that's our primary game plan. And for our clients, they have a specific game plan, right? And the crisis of the day, trying to react to that, does not help their plan move forward. It only distracts it, or it could blow it up, right? If you bail out of stocks right now, and then let's say Trump comes out on April 2nd and he says, oh, I was just kidding, we're not going to do any Trump or any tariffs at all, the stock market would jump 10%. And if you're out of the market, you don't get that return. And you can never recover that. So I don't know if that's helpful, but you gotta be in. Don't let the crisis of the day scare you. It's already priced in, and think about your long-term plan.
You know, what comes to my mind scripturally is Matthew, I believe it's chapter 6, which says, "Don't worry about tomorrow; it will worry about its own thing. Sufficient is today's trouble." And this idea, you want me to think of my investment, my business from the standpoint of this constant. I have a strategy. I've worked with an advisor. I'm going to trust it based on best practice versus react to the crisis of the day. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Without a doubt. And look, sometimes as business owners, we have to react to the new crises, right? So COVID's a perfect example. The stock market's plummeting 40%. Our clients are scared to death. We can't meet with them, at least for a few weeks until things kind of settle. And we're immediately in the mode of my employees are scared, right? So I'm like, hey, time out. We've got retained earnings in the business. Your job is safe. We might have to cut back a little bit, but I want you to focus on our clients. So we had done planning to have reserves for that situation, but then immediately you go into leadership. So when there is a crisis and you're a business owner, and I don't know, everybody's got a different type of business, but for us, what we primarily sell is leadership and planning. And when there is a sudden new crisis and change in the situation, people become really thirsty for that help and that leadership and that plan. Like, how do I need to adjust? And so you got to be nimble, you got to be fast, you got to be out there in leading. Like, don't go into hiding. But that's different than investing in stocks, because the information is priced in so quickly, and we know we're going to have that volatility. You can't predict it in advance. And if you try and react to it after it's already happened, usually what happens is you're out of the market once it hits bottom and comes back. And 2020 was a perfect example of that. It went down 40% in like 38 days. But by the end of the year, it was positive again. And if you're out, you didn't get those returns.
Oh, that's so good. I'm talking with David Witter, the founder and CEO of Financial Harvest Wealth Management, an advisory firm out in Winter Park, Florida. And we're talking about the current U.S. economy, the impact of the Trump administration policies to the economy, and the upcoming best practice conference, where David will be a speaker for the one-day conference, as well as co-MC with his wife, our Impact Brunch. David, so I'm going to ask you one last question on the economy, and then we'll get into your talk coming up at the brunch. At the best practice. So, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the market, but make the case right now for the Trump administration if you can. I want to say you work for the Trump administration. You are their economic advisor, and you are making the case here on this podcast for those around the world who are concerned, and here who are concerned about the tariffs, hurting the global economy, concerned about the Dodge and its impact and what it's doing for the country on the social side. Concerned about whatever the concerns are. This sense that, Trump is kind of setting this new era of even conquest, in terms of the jokes on Canada and so forth. Make the case. So take us forward. So we're 3 to 5 years out. What's the best case for what potentially could happen, if we're going to be optimistic about it? Make the case for us.
Great question. So I'll start with, if you're talking about the equity markets and you're investing, 8% compounded returns 3 to 5 years from now means somewhere between 25 and 50% higher. Now, the shorter horizon of time in 3 to 5 years is pretty short, right? There's a lot of variability in that, but all we can work off is the historical average. And it goes right back to you and me and all of our listeners, the individuals out there in the marketplace. Their collective knowledge, innovation, and productivity far outweighs any kind of policies that Trump or Biden or whoever else implemented.
But wait a minute. But if I'm Trump, I'm saying, wait a minute, David, you are discrediting my genius. You are discrediting the fact that I alone can fix it. What do you say to that?
Yeah. I don't know. Well, remember, politicians get elected for the promises they make and sometimes keep, right? So, but I mean, you can break Doge, and you can break down tariffs fundamentally so people can understand them. So why would Trump even consider dying on this hill or being successful with tariffs? So the example I like to use is Germany and the United States. So I've always liked Tahoes, right? Chevrolet. And then my wife, Katie, she likes BMW. Well, when a BMW is imported in the United States, let's say that there's 0 tariffs. But if there's somebody in Germany that likes a Chevrolet, let's say that right now Germany has a 20% tariff on the Chevrolet. That's Trump's argument. He's saying that's not fair because it's much easier for that German-based business to sell that BMW in the United States at a 20% discount. Conversely, for the United States manufacturer to sell their vehicle in Germany at a 20% premium. So that's where he's coming from conceptually. And quite honestly, I think he's right in some situations. The United States has been very generous with certain countries to try and help them economically, and there is unfair trade tariffs. Now, ultimately, though, at the end of the day, the more free trade you have, this is a principle of economics, the better off overall the world is. Because if we, let's say, specialize in natural gas production, but then, I don't know, in France, they specialize in wine, then they can produce the wine cheaper and we can produce the natural gas cheaper. And then we come together and say, hey, we'll buy your wine and you buy our natural gas. So there's a tug of war there, right? Trying to make it fair, but at the same time, free trade definitely helps everybody overall. How it ends up, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
That's a good insight.
With Doge, with Doge, that I think that in the long run, this is a good thing. And the reason I say that is anytime the government is spending and taxing, it is taking productivity out of the free market economy productivity. If you think about it, if you take taxes, right? So you and I, everybody listening, if you produce revenue and then you produce profits, when the profits come out of your business, you're taxed. If it wasn't taxed, now I'm not advocating for that, but if it wasn't taxed, you would have more dollars in profits. You could hire more people. You could invest in new business opportunities. You could invest in new sales. You could produce new products. You could give more to the church. You could, on and on and on, right? So a tax definitely takes money out of the economy. It takes it out of the private sector and it puts it over to the government. So if there is inefficiencies, if there's waste, if there's fraud, and then they true that up, absolutely that helps the U.S. economy. I also hopeful that it'll help with this government deficit spending. That's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, we have this elevated inflation that's still kind of sticky, is because of the government spending. So I think at the end of the day, yes, it should be good. Maybe some of the messaging could have been a little bit better in how they're going about it. But anytime you make the government more efficient and leave more money in the hands of us, the entrepreneurs, that's good for economic growth.
Oh, that's good insight, David. Thank you so much for that. By the way, I did a write-up on this very issue around, it's titled, what if I lost my good government job? And you can, if you learn more about it, it's on our blog page at nehemiahecommunity.com. What if you lost your good government job? This is not just good for those who lost their job, but it's for all of us to just read and get our take on this whole process. And I have a part 2 coming about what could they have done, because at the point that David makes very valid, which is the way it was executing messaging, that for sure was an issue on my part. But either way, I'll let that address that.
My sister and brother-in-law are both in law enforcement, government law enforcement, and they're both workaholics. I mean, they really genuinely care, right? And Doge is not going after that, right? They're like, we need more of that in the government. 100%. Those that care and are doing their job and really helping the country or local governments.
And this is part of why I think politicians are the worst persons to execute a messaging. Because it becomes political.
Yeah.
Right?
Well said.
Us as entrepreneurs, we focus on outcome and processes, and we don't get into all the other nuances and so forth. But that's a whole nother topic. David, you have 5 more minutes real quick,
Yeah,
please?
sure.
All right, perfect. So guys, David, Miriam, thank you for watching and listening. So Marion is one of our trainers and coaches out in Puerto Rico, and she's with us watching today. Definitely be here. So David, again, I'm talking to David Witter. He runs an investment firm, a financial planning firm called Financial Harvest Wealth Advisors,
Yep.
out in Florida in Winter Park. They're about to cross the $500 million mark. You can see why. This guy is smart, right? His ability to articulate process, principle, and policy without leaning one way or the other in terms of how he personally feels is what I've always respected about David. He's a thinker and not necessarily a feeler, and that's actually literally. He's a thinker, engineer background. So, David, you'll be speaking for us at the Best Practice. By the way, if you've not yet signed up for the Best Practice, I encourage you to do so. It's going to be on May 8th and 9th. I'm sorry, May 7th, 8th, and 9th in Orlando, Florida. And you can sign up by going to nehemiahecommunity.com/Best Practice Conference 2025. Sign up, join us there, and we'll have an amazing time. Here's what Miriam Soda said, David. He said, thank you so much for this podcast, educating our people. Well, amen. So, David, give us a little teaser. So I've asked you to talk about succession. You're going to have 20 minutes to address that. But right now, in about 1.5 minutes or so, give us a teaser. What can they expect? As I know that you haven't done all your planning and all this stuff. I'm going to ask an engineer to speak based on his heart and not his head for a minute. That's a dangerous proposition, but we'll see.
Put me on the spot.
So what can they expect? Give us. I won't hold you exactly to it.
Yeah. So when I think about succession, I really think it's part of stewardship. And I'm 48. And I kind of joke, some guys, I say guys because it's predominantly guys that had the midlife crisis, right? The gals, they have their heads on straight. But a lot of times when guys have their midlife crisis, they buy a Corvette. And so my joke is that Katie doesn't like Corvettes. So I didn't get to buy a Corvette from a midlife crisis. But I say my midlife crisis was realizing a year or two ago, just the responsibility of we're a team of 8, so call it 6 employees. We have about 250 clients and close to 500 million or $500 million in assets under management. The only responsible stewardship thing to do would be to have a proper succession plan in place. And that just kind of gave me the why, right? Simon Sinek in his famous TED Talk says, start with the why, and then you'll figure out the how and the what. And so it kind of put me on a little bit of a journey to figure out like, how do I do succession planning? And you helped tremendously in that and still do. And I just think it comes back down to stewardship, right? And look, and sometimes it's not comfortable, because you're like, the realization is, hey, I'm 48 and I'm healthy, and God willing, I'll be doing this another 20 years or so or more. But you can't necessarily count on that. And what a gift it is to those around you if you're able to, whatever gifts God's given you, like how do you pass those on and continue to have that legacy of the culture that we've been blessed to build here, and just continue to keep it rolling.
One of the things I remember most about your journey, David, is when you had to make a decision between growth through acquisition or organic. And while we're trying to figure it out, your organic growth was hitting out of the park. And you kind of came to the conclusion, wait a minute, why should I take the risk in growing through acquisition, negatively impacting my culture and possibly then spending money when my organic strategy, if I just keep this pace, is working so well. And so, I mean, that sort of is a gift, but that also leads to the fact you were doing the right things and that ended up just working for you. We saved you heartache and made a decision. Now that could change down the line, but I thought that was very wise of you.
That's because I got you as my spiritual coach, man.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored. It's like coaching Michael Jordan, though. It's like cheating, you know. I'm just coming along for the ride. So,
Oh man.
David, thank you. We're looking forward to that. And we're going to have entrepreneurs from Kenya, from Congo, from Mexico, and of course from the United States of America. Guys, you heard it here. Dave is going to talk about looking at succession from the standpoint of stewardship. I like that, the sense of responsibility,
Mm.
right? And he's going to give you great insight of that. He's going to put two hats on, one as the entrepreneur, talk about his own journey, but then the other hat is going to be as a financial advisor. You're going to get a chance to hear from him. If you were his client, what would he advise you to do as you think through business succession? It's a great session. You don't want to miss it. David, please do not leave. I want to use one other word of advice to our listeners and viewers, if you don't mind. But before David does that, I want to encourage you guys. If you enjoy this podcast, I want you to share it. I want you to share it on your own social media platforms. I want you to share it with your friends, share it with your family, share with your business associates. I know as you heard this, you know somebody in this divisive time, there's somebody you know who's processing everything from a left or right angle, right? They've got caught up in the political divide. I believe that this podcast really addressed what's going on economically from a very balanced perspective, gave us insights. He says something that I know both sides agree or disagree with. It doesn't matter who's president. I love it. That should not be. That should not be. What's the word? That should not be controversial, right? And these doesn't matter.
Yep.
At the end of the day, the founding fathers set things up in such a way that things will keep humming. And for sure, God is with us in this country. So share that with them so they might get insights, might have a peace of mind as to what's happening. Also, if you want to know more about Financial Harvest, I want you to visit their website at financialharvest.com. Financialharvest.com. There you can learn about how to take advantage of their services and how to meet with David and his team to guide you in your own personal or business financial issues as you think about managing your investments for the glory of God. Lastly, if you want to know more about, hey, Patrice, wow, how can I also become a member of Nehemiah and get the help that you need to grow your business or to launch a new business? Visit us at nehemiahecommunity.com. nehemiahecommunity.com. There you can learn about our training program, whether it's biblical entrepreneurship, a passive income continuum, serve with love. You can learn about our coaching program, whether it's one-on-one coaching, like what David receives from us, or group coaching. You can also learn about our access to capital program, to where we can connect with impact investors who are able and willing to consider your business to be funded. You can also learn about our membership program, how you can become a member of the Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community. Membership does have its privileges. We have close to 5,000 members from Asia, Africa, Europe, Latin America. All of us committed to one single thing: how to build companies for the glory of God. Join our community and be a part of our life group, our Connect meeting, and all the different activities. With that said, David, last question. So there are people watching and listening right now, and they're, kind of saying, you talk about midlife crisis, and they're saying, wow, I'm having a midlife crisis, but I'm not thinking, because, you talked about buying a Corvette. Some people get depressed. Some people upgrade their wives. I mean, literally, all kinds of things happen. So speak of it. So what advice would you give those who are having, whether it's a midlife crisis or just a crisis right now, a crisis of uncertainty, as they look at the news and see what's going on with the U.S. government or other governments around the world? What advice would you give them? What was it that allowed you to come to that point of clarity to say, you know what? Let me focus on my why. Let me focus on stewardship and succession. What advice would you give them to manage their own personal crisis right now or business?
Well, I'd start in the scriptures. I start every day with that, and I always just see it. I get I get this like a little more encouragement that I might need early in the morning. Just the simple truths that God works to the good of those who love them or love Him, I should say, and whatever trial or challenge that you're facing, um, He just asks us to be obedient and follow His word and seek His guidance. But He also asks us to act. Right? I'm going through Matthew right now, and it was the parable of the talents. And Patrice, something new I saw in the parable of the talents. It said He gave one, He gave two, and He gave five, and it said each to according to their ability, and not like a caste system, but I look at that as each of us are given unique gifts and talents, and He expects us to grow them with His help, right, and for His glory, and giving Him the credit for it. But He does expect us to grow them. And look, there's seasons where you feel like you're in the desert, and you just keep praying, you keep going to His word, you keep persisting, keep making we like in business, we call it keep making the offers of help. Where, hey, how can I help you here? How can I come up with a new way to help my client? What are they worried about right now? How can I lead them? How can I help them? So it's like, what's the new offer of help? Keep leaning in, keep making the offers of help, and God will see you through the desert.
What's good word. Wow. Amen. Begin your day with the Lord in His word, and that will give you relevance for that day. Good advice. Thank you so much, David. Listen, let me pray for you guys. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord enable you to steward those things that are under your care, and steward them in such a way that one day you'll hear those wonderful words, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Guess what? He'll now make you rule over many things. God bless you. Thanks for watching and listening. David, thank you so much. See you guys at the Best Practice Conference in Tour.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.